Hello everyone, friends. We've started the weekly opening in the markets, and actually there is a lot to talk about today. The world is heading towards a new crisis. Things are not going well in America. The same goes for Europe. They have entered a period where they are at odds with America in the same way. At the forefront of all this, there is actually important news coming from America. The Federal Prosecutor's Office has launched an investigation into Fed Chairman Powell because Fed Chairman Powell is not lowering interest rates enough. Trump has been angry with him about this for a long time. In fact, we can clearly see that Trump is running America almost like a dictator. And not just that, he wants to do this all over the world, reminding everyone of his power. And in his latest statement, for example, he said something like, "Without America, NATO is nothing." A response to this statement came at lightning speed. Italian Prime Minister Meloni said, "Then let's close the American bases, cut off trade and see what happens," making a bold comment. In short, NATO is heading towards fragmentation and European countries are taking an entirely anti-American stance. Of course, if you ask what the consequences will be, we can say that the world is heading towards a new environment of chaos and crisis. But of course, if America carries out this Greenland operation, and at this point it seems less like a possibility and more like a move that could actually happen. So if you ask what these issues mean for us investors, my first answer would be this: you should continue to protect your gold. And immediately after that, my second answer is this: in my opinion, as of this period, the American stock market and shares are now risky because the first reactions against America have started to come from Europe. A period may arise when they start to withdraw their money because they will want to make the first reaction with money. And European individual and institutional investors have a total of around $15 trillion in assets in America. Of course, this figure is not higher than countries like China or Japan, but it is still a very significant amount. And it's not just European countries that are at odds with America. Similar tensions exist in South American countries as well. And in summary, due to this tense environment at the weekly market opening, there are sharp increases in gold and silver, while the American stock market indices are falling in the futures market. And in a moment, we will start examining on the charts whether the main news flow aligns with the technicals. Before moving on to the charts, I kindly ask for your support against YouTube bots and algorithms, and in fact, many of my followers are already providing significant support. I would also like to thank them very much. I want to point out that every comment and every like you make here truly acts as a shield for us. First of all, I want to start with the American stock market. Look, when we look at the index side, specifically the NASDAQ 100, the futures market is currently open and there is selling pressure in the futures market. There is about a 1% drop in the American indices. There are declines in technology-focused stocks. If the level of 25,398 is lost, it is likely that the decline will continue down to around 24,300. If these levels are breached, and especially if the 24,300 level is lost, the American stock market could face a trend where it falls even further. Those who look at their stocks from a medium to long-term perspective probably won't worry too much about this issue. But I want to emphasize again that there are risks on the American stock market side in the short term. Recently, I made good gains here, and after turning most of those gains into profits, I started waiting for new opportunities here. And right now, I don't think there's an opportunity here. If we look at gold, spot gold started the week by breaking a record and clearly entered the upper trend zone. I had mentioned that if the $2,547 level was surpassed, it would enter a new trend. There hasn't been a daily close yet, but it looks like it will close above this level. With daily closes now coming at this level, gold will have entered a zone where its path forward is very clearly open. As I always say, in times when global chaos and tensions are extremely high, trusting in gold and continuing to trust in gold is one of the most logical options. So we continue to use this option here, and with today's closes, I think we will see faster rises on the gold side. At the daily level, as I mentioned, I do not expect gold to fall below the $4,250 or $4,300 levels. Gold has maintained this level. In the upcoming period, I still do not expect gold to fall below these levels. Therefore, I would like to say to new investors that products like ounce gold and gram gold are investable products. However, investing in funds that have lost their connection to reality is risky. If you ask which fund this is, for example, I don't think it makes sense to invest in the Mint Gold certificate. Look, the Mint Gold certificate has dropped by more than 20% in the last 4 days, but my opinion remains the same. The Mint Gold certificate is no longer an investable product because it has become a product that has lost its connection to reality. Normally, this product should be equivalent to physical gold, but it is priced much higher than physical gold. So even after a 20% drop, it's still very expensive. That's why instead of buying this, considering options like buying physical gold, buying gold from a bank, or investing in options like ounce gold, or even not doing any of these and looking at leveraged gold funds like UGL, which I mentioned as a 2 times leveraged gold fund, are all viable alternatives. But I don't make the same comment for the Mint Gold certificate. Look, when we look at gram gold, what did I tell you about gram gold here? I don't expect gold to fall below the 6,000 TL level. Gold will continue to rise in any case. It will keep doing its thing. In other words, it can continue to attract new investors at the point we've reached today. We're even above the previous peaks. If you ask whether gram gold can still be bought today, yes, gram gold can still be bought today. But it's important to emphasize that you should buy gradually, make new purchases during short-term pullbacks, and thus average your cost accordingly. Because after such a significant rise, in my opinion, this is the best advice that can be given. But to summarize, if you ask what my expectation is here, I expect gram gold to climb above the 6,450 Turkish lira level in a short time and then to start a new upward trend. If we look at silver, silver has also climbed to the $84 level. The last time it tested $84 was 2 weeks ago. It dropped down from there. It climbed back up to this area. It tested the same peak. As you may remember, my last comment on silver was this. Since the rises in silver have been much greater than in gold, I mentioned that shifting to gold, taking profits here, and moving the money to gold would be a more logical option. In fact, during this period, silver still showed a more positive movement than gold. So, silver continues to be stronger than I expected. But still, since I took action to reduce my risks, I am satisfied with my decision. I would still make the same comment. So I think it makes sense to reduce at least 50% of the silver balance and shift it to gold. When I make this comment, do I see anything negative on the silver chart? No, there is nothing negative at all. The ongoing trend is clearly visible and technically there has been no deterioration whatsoever. The strong outlook continues on the 4-hour chart, the daily chart, and the weekly chart. The only thing I see is that in the gold-silver ratio, silver is extremely valuable, while gold is, by comparison, extremely undervalued. That's why if silver is stronger within the basket, shifting to gold, or if things are at an average state, increasing gold holdings still seems like a more logical option to me. But as I said, silver is still showing a stronger movement than gold. It's in a better position than I expected. And in the dollar-based parity, with it closing above the $84 level, with a daily close, gold and silver will continue to rise together. But my vote of confidence is on the gold side. Look, when we look at silver in terms of Turkish lira, the 114 TL level was retested there as well. It surpassed this level, reached 116 TL, and it also started the week with a record. With closes above this level, I think we can expect the upward trends in both gold and silver to continue. But still, when making this comment, it's important to really understand and grasp what I'm saying. Look, for example, I just used the mint gold as an example. While I was expecting a rise in gold, I emphasized that investing in mint gold is not logical and is risky. And believe me, there are people who invested in mint gold in the last 4 or 5 days and ended up losing money. There are currently people who have lost around 20% in gold. I'm trying to lead you to maximum profit by having you take the minimum level of risk so you don't end up in this situation. In other words, if my goal was to make you earn a lot by taking all the risks, on the other hand, we could also face the risk of losing a lot. It's important to understand and grasp this well. Look, my expectation for a rise in Borsa Istanbul also continues. I've already explained the same thing to you in advance during the December-January period. Before December even started, when the 10,800 level had just been reached and we were above the cloud level, I told you that during December and January, Borsa Istanbul would rise, break records, and we would witness these increases. I can't say how happy investors will be, but I told you this would happen. Are investors really satisfied? No, they're not. Are the desired performances present in the stocks? In my opinion, no. But Borsa Istanbul is delivering this rise. And during this process, I think this upward trend will continue. Look, even when comparing the American stock market and Borsa Istanbul, I told you recently that as an index, I see Borsa Istanbul as more advantageous than the American stock market indices during this period. You remember this comment of mine, don't you? During this period in December and January, in other words, in this roughly 40 to 45 day period, Borsa Istanbul has outperformed the American stock market as an index. And I expect this to continue for at least a while longer. If there is a new update or if I see a new change here, you will definitely hear it from me. When we look at the cryptocurrency side, Bitcoin is still in a trend where it lags behind the general markets and it still hasn't been able to break out of this trend. The $89,600 level continues to act as strong support here, and while commodities with limited supply such as gold, silver, platinum, and palladium started this weekly opening with significant gains, we did not see the same performance in the cryptocurrency market. At the very least, I would have expected Bitcoin to be at the $93,000 or $94,000 levels. Bitcoin did make a relative move, rising up to 92,500, but then it faced a sell-off from there. In today's news, there were reports such as an investigation being launched against Powell in the United States. The cryptocurrency market also priced this news in negatively. However, I do not expect the trend to turn more negative specifically for the cryptocurrency market. But actually, there isn't much to say or many data points for this market right now. At the very least, in order for the healthy trend to continue, it was important for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP to hold their support levels. They continue to maintain these support levels. When we look at Ethereum, after it touched the cloud region around the $3,000 level, we see that it has continued to hold this area. As for XRP, it is currently in a zone where the cloud test is taking place. In short, we can say that the $2 level will act as support for XRP. Regarding the overall outlook for altcoins, I would like to say this. Look, on the total 3 chart, that is the market cap chart of altcoins excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, after this cloud level was tested, no gains were achieved. This test took place last week. If there had been closes above this level, a new trend would have emerged where altcoins would rise further. But this gain did not materialize. But still, we can't really say that the situation is very negative. On the daily level, the area where this green cloud has formed is still being maintained. So to be frank, nothing has really changed in the cryptocurrency market. Prices are still moving more or less in the same ranges. I also don't want to overanalyze and keep going around the same topics. What I expect and want is for Bitcoin and altcoins to join in the rallies happening on the commodities side, especially the major altcoins, but we still haven't seen this happen clearly yet. Still, I continue to remain optimistic. Other than these, there's nothing else to talk about in the weekly opening. No matter what the prices are, I hope you're doing well. See you in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Subscribing to my channel and turning on notifications is an investment advice for yourself, with the intention of informing you about developments before they happen. See you again very soon.